Yeah, I think. Ooh, I need to turn this down.
Nos vamos sentando, por favor. Vamos a empezar.
Volume this side, the other side. The other side of the volume.
You have it? Okay. Bueno, buenos días. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas a la rueda de prensa de la película que clausura esta noche la 73 edición del Festival de San Sebastián. La película es Winter of the Crow, la conspiración del cuervo. Y para hablarnos de ella, tenemos aquí con nosotros en la mesa a su productor, Stanislaw Dziedzic, a su actriz protagonista, Lesley Manville, y a su directora y guionista, Kasia Adamik. Bueno, como siempre, me gustaría empezar con una primera pregunta a la directora, Kasia Adamik, un poquito que nos cuente cómo fue la génesis de este proyecto y por qué le interesaba recuperar este periodo histórico, ¿no?, de Polonia.
Yeah, it started actually for me more as inspiration from the short novel by Olga Tokarczuk. And initially I didn't think about the political implications of it. It came from a very personal space for me. When I was a kid, I lived in a satellite town in Warsaw, similar to the one in the film. And I immigrated after martial law was installed with my mama. And I remember that time, I remember that time from a point of view of a child. And after I arrived in France and we couldn't go back to Poland, for many years, I dreamed about this kind of, like labyrinth of, gray buildings and no man's lands. And when I read the short novel by Olga Tokarczuk, I thought that she described the way I remembered it, like she always described something that was in my mind, in my head. So I thought right away to adapt it into a film, and it took, of course, several years. And when I met Olga and asked her for the novel's rights, she said she gave them already to somebody. She gave them to a younger German writer, Sandra Buchta, and she introduced us. And this is how the idea of the movie started. But as we were working on it, which took, many, many years, and we know exactly how much because Sandra was pregnant when we met, so it's very easy to know that was 12 and a half years ago, because her kid is 12 now. It became somehow more and more relevant as we worked on it. Of course, we didn't work on it for 12 years non-stop, but we met, we talked, she had to invent this whole plight for John Andrews to live through, because the novel is only 8 pages, so it's just more of an inspiration than anything else. And as we were working on the film, we felt that it became more and more relevant, because somehow we felt that the world is kind of forgetting what living in a totalitarian regime feels like. It felt like Europe is kind of forgetting how it felt like, and Eastern Europe certainly is forgetting, and the world is forgetting, and we thought that we didn't want to make a political film, but like a universal, more emotional way to make the audience feel how it feels like to lose this control over your own life when you don't live in a democracy. You lose control over your choices and over your you don't understand the rules. The rules change all the time, and we wanted it to be more of a visceral experience. So as we were making the film, this became more and more relevant, unfortunately.
Muy bien. Tenemos una primera pregunta aquí, en la segunda fila, y luego...
I wanted to ask Lesley, did you spend any time with psychiatrists to get into the mindset of Dr. Andrews? And I'm sure, like a fellow Brit, you probably went off to Russia at the first time that we were able to. And I just wondered, what was your first experience visiting a communist Eastern Bloc country?
Right, well, I've actually spoken to psychiatrists linked to other projects that I've worked on. So that's a sort of familiar territory. I mean, the thing is, we see Joan so briefly in her profession in the film. I think more importantly for me, it was about finding this woman who was quite self-contained, quite clear of herself, of her identity, quite stoic and bit of a box around herself, you know, just doesn't let people in, is seemingly quite a cold woman. We shot in Luxembourg first, didn't we?
Yes.
And then we went on to Warsaw, and I'd never been there before. So it was quite, it seemed familiar because I live in London. It's a big city, Warsaw, and it has a cultural life, and it has a life that you recognise very much. But then what was quite surprising was when we went outside Warsaw a bit to film the scenes in the satellite town, and I thought these buildings that we were going to, that we were filming in, were abandoned buildings. I mean, they looked very brutal, and they looked very stark. But actually, people were. Full community of people were living there, and that surprised me. Yeah, but I had a very, very, very good time making this film, and always interesting to go to countries that you've not been to before, and I hadn't been to either of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we tried to help you with the experience because really, you know, we didn't have so much time, so much shooting days in the exteriors. It was pretty tough, filled days.
Yes,
pretty
and cold.
Physical, and it was super cold.
Joan she doesn't travel in the film with a lot of warm clothing. She thinks she's going to go there, do the lecture, come home. So when I'm running around in those places where it really, really was very...
I was very sorry. Lesley, really.
Right, forgive you.
It was some you had some underlayer, I hope.
I did.
But yeah, I think we kind of threw her in this, you know, experience of somebody, you know, the crew speaks Polish, you know. We brought her to all these weird places that we were trying to recreate, you know, 1981. And you know, she met a lot of, you know, daily players, actors who didn't really speak English very well either. So I think you had the experience of not knowing what was going on around you, so that maybe helped.
Yeah.
Ok, tenemos aquí otra pregunta.
Good morning. This is Alessandro Bizzotto from Players Magazine Italy for Lesley Manville. Many say that your strength as an actress lies in portraying so-called small characters, except the crown probably.
Say that, sorry, so-called what?
Small characters, ordinary characters, except the crown probably, who become immense on screen. And you are immense on screen, really. I'd like to know if it is a label you embrace, and I didn't know under what conditions you shot. So I'd like to know how your body adapted to the environment around you, using the body language and your breath to make anxiety visible. And I don't know if the producers want to add something about the challenges of shooting under such conditions. Thank you very much.
Well, you know, it's kind of part of the job. I'm not difficult on days like that. You know, I don't make a fuss. I signed up for the job, and, you know, there's lots of running around Warsaw in inappropriate clothing for the weather. So you just crack on and do it, really. Yeah, I'm not precious about things like that. I embrace it. You know, sometimes I play characters who smoke, and I don't smoke. So, you know, I have to have this horrible taste of in my mouth all day. All the things that you have to do, it's a transitory thing, you know. At the end of the day, I was warm, and I had warm drinks, and I was looked after. But yeah, I'm quite pragmatic. I don't make demands, or I didn't grow up in a climate like that. You know, I was well into my 30s before, you know, I was even doing plays where you had a decent dressing room. You know, I was mostly doing pub theatre where you're getting changed in the toilets with the men. You know, so everything's fine. I don't need kind of wrapping up in mohair and looked after in the traditional way people might think actors do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I concur. I concur. It was
Maybe the producer also, no? You want maybe Stanislaw could about the shooting or the production of the film.
We shot in 3 places: Luxembourg, Great Britain, just 1.5 day, and in Poland. And I think we were trying to make as easy as possible. Even sometimes the weather conditions were not helpful, but good for the film. You know, there was night shoots as well. We survived, and no one died. No one was hurt. So it's like doing a film. You're trying to do the best. Of course, not everything is working all the time as you wish, but that's our job to find a way to make it happen. That's how it was during
we did
shooting.
have a few challenges, though. The snow was one of the challenges,
snow,
you know.
Exactly.
Because it came, it went, you know, as snow does. It's very difficult now to do a whole film in snow. Even
Well, you were saying that January typically, which we shot in January, is typically that years ago there'd be lots of snow.
It'd be a few meters high.
I
you know,
remember
snow.
that too in the UK back in the 70s, and you used to get so much snow, and we just don't now.
Yeah, we chose January, like the end of January, beginning February, because normally this is the month when you have the most. We can hope for it, but you know, it was very, you know, on and off, and so we struggled with that. I think production-wise, you know, and for me the biggest challenge was to recreate some of the Warsaw 1981 in Luxembourg. We shot in Luxembourg because of the co-production, right?
That's
I
right.
mean, this is
That's
what
right.
you do, you know,
Interiors.
to make European films now. You have to, you know, co-produce it with several countries, find money wherever it is, and you know, we had to bring everything from, you know, like. Plugs, you know, to glasses, to everything. There's nothing looked like Warsaw 1981 in Luxembourg. So I just want to say kudos to our production designer, you know, Aleksandra Kiszkowska, who really, you know, did like an amazing job recreating this period in a country that doesn't look anything like Warsaw.
Sí, tenemos allí, sí, aquí.
If I can add a little bit to the winter, because in '81 there was a very heavy winter. If we would, you know, wanted to recreate, we would not achieve the same scale of the like a vision, because
it was impossible.
The snow was like over 1.5 meters. So you didn't basically walking on the street. You didn't see what cars were driving on the street. So there was. I remember that we were talking. I was like presenting to a few young people, and I said, "Well, we have to add some more snow." And they said, "That's enough. That's enough." And I said, "It's not enough. Remember, '81 was." And said, "Well, but we were born after." So they didn't remember, so it's...
Sorry.
Okay.
Teníamos aquí otra.
Hello, question here from Brazil, Rodrigo Fonseca, Correio da Manhã. Lesley, first of all, thank you for so many wonderful acting always. And my question here is, it's very good to root for a hero who uses a camera as a weapon, not a weapon to attack, but a weapon to make people free. I would like to hear you about this heroic dimension of Joan. And Kasia, I would like to ask you something. It's a very electrifying film. Sometimes I had the sensation I was watching a James Bond movie. And I would like to ask you about the thrilling atmosphere of the movie, how to direct it, and especially how to edit them. Thank you very much.
I don't think Joan is sort of setting out to be, you use the word heroic. in the way she's... I don't think she sees herself as that. I think that she wants to take the photos. It was kind of... Polaroid cameras in 1981 were kind of a cool thing to have. Everyone was using them.
Yeah, in the West.
In the West, yeah, in the West. Yeah. So I don't think it was like I'm going to be this figure and I'm going to go there and I'm going to take my pictures on this, you know, unusual camera. I think it's more of a sort of that's what she got for herself in the UK and took it with her. I mean, this woman is not going there expecting anything that then happens to her. She's, I think she's quite narcissistic, Joan. She's very, the world, for her, the world revolves around herself. She's, I think she's got quite a high opinion of herself. But, you know, she goes to Warsaw to give this lecture and come home and doesn't really know how to respond to this extraordinary historic event that then happens around her. And I think what's good about the film is that often, I mean, like take The Crown, for example, which is obviously based on one of the world's most famous families. And all of the events that happened in that are real events. But the great thing about it is you can go, right, well, but we don't know what they talk about, that family at breakfast. We don't know what those arguments are about, what the private and personal atmosphere is between those people. And by taking this moment in his history and putting in a character like Joan, she becomes the eyes through which you see this experience. And it is accurate, isn't it?
Yes, everything is plausible.
Everything that happened
Some things are real and some things are...
Yes,
could have happened.
It's a drama.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's a drama. We're not making a documentary about what happened in 1981. So, of course, Joan just wants to get out. She doesn't want to fight that battle. She doesn't want to be involved with what that movement is trying to achieve. But then what the film does very nicely, I think, is because she has to stay, she can't get out, it does test a certain compassionate side in her that becomes a bit of a revelation for her, and something that she wanted to just walk away from, she finds herself not being able to walk away from, but more than that, becoming emotionally involved with the plight of that movement.
so it's almost like she's James Bond, but against her.
I like this
James
James Bond thing that's going on.
She doesn't want to be, but she's forced to become James Bond. Yeah, I mean, it was very important to me for the movie to be kind of a breathless experience, you know. Once, you know, it starts, once she arrives in Warsaw, and once she, you know, from this kind of anger of being a little bit mistreated at the beginning, you know, with her luggage being lost and, you know, the lecture thing, and she was a bit angry. Then once the martial law is installed, she really has to escape. She has to run. And for me, it was very important to achieve this atmosphere of this surreal, you know, breathless plight. She doesn't understand the rules. She's overwhelmed. She's in a place she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand the language, and the rhythm of the film, the way we edited, you know, and shot the film, was supposed to kind of like, you know, grow in this a little bit of this more, you know, dreamlike, nightmarish atmosphere that grew around her. It was also very important for me not to be realistic in this moment, you know. I mean, everything is, as I said, you know, it's plausible, and all the events, the political events against which, you know, the story is happening are real. but everything is a little bit more exaggerated, a little more, hyper-realistic and not realistic, and really wanted to experience this, as Lesley said, through the eyes of the character. So this kind of like a very subjective, very visceral experience that she lives through, and I wanted the audience to feel what she feels and not necessarily to understand what's happening. And I think this was like the biggest challenges for me, how to build this story to be felt but not understood, to really feel lost in this world as John Andrews is lost in this world. Mm-hmm. She as you said, she finds this empathy, towards the plight of others, which which I think is what we need the most of right now, as we kind of slide towards, weird totalitarian, regimes again.
Mm-hmm. Sí, tenemos ahí.
Thank you so much for the movie. I totally enjoyed it. And especially that women were put in all kinds of important roles in it. First of all, I wondered, does it come from the novel? I love the leitmotif of the carp, also particularly that it's a black one and waiting in line for it. I wondered where that leitmotif came from. And secondly, you pose imagination as the way out of the more totalitarian mindset, and I was wondering how you understand that position.
Yeah,
Thank you.
The carp is in the novel, is one of the main elements of the novel, but it feels surreal to a lot of you, but this is actually what, very real. We all had carps in our bathtubs, swimming around for days before Christmas, First of all, you never knew where you're gonna get one, it was difficult to find. And you wanted it to be fresh, so you kept it alive until the last moment, so it doesn't go bad, basically. Even though it feels very surreal, it's actually one of my childhood memories, and it was also in the novel.
What do you do if you want a bath?
You just take it with the carp in there. You just wash up while the carp is swimming between your legs.
Okay, great.
I think we all, Stasha can concur with that. We all remember that. But yeah, it is this surreal, elements that Joan encounters, which is what I think the experience of going to the East was. You arrived in a place which is, like a normal place, but the rules and the traditions were like, just a little bit off. Everything was a little bit off. And I think that's what Olga Tokarczuk described so well in the novel, this kind of surreal experience, just exacerbated afterwards by, the political events that happened later. And the language barrier, I think that was also very important for me, that she doesn't understand anything that anybody is saying throughout this adventure, except, of course, for Alina, who speaks English. And this communication, I think this inability to communicate, I think it's also something that is very relevant today, even though we do speak the same language, we cannot communicate anymore. So that the carp, this kind of fish out of water, this is a bit of the metaphor for that, And I'm sorry, I forgot the second part of the question.
Do you want to add something?
Just how do you understand the way that imagination does?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I answered this a little bit in there, but I think, imagination as a kind of trigger to understand, to have an idea how to fix the world, and as a kind of spark to maybe inspire. I think we need inspiration, and we need hope, and empathy, and it starts with imagination for me.
Muy bien. Sí, tenemos aquí en la segunda fila.
Sorry to be so greedy here. Kasia, returning to your opening remarks about a lot of Europeans don't remember the totalitarian regimes, and I know you've been on this journey for 12 years, but does it seem weirdly more timely than you expected right now, when we have an unexpected totalitarian regime rising in the US, suppression of freedom of speech? And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes me happy for the film, but unhappy for the world. It is more timely, absolutely. And I think it feels like, we had this, the 20th century for the European and American experience. You had the, World War, and then you had, the communist times. And we had this vaccine of totalitarianism, we felt it. We were immune to this for many years. And I think this vaccine is wearing off, And, when your vaccine is wearing off, you need another vaccine, and you're actually going to catch the disease, right? So it feels like the young generations don't have this vaccine anymore, and that's very scary. It's very scary to me. Of course, you have the war in Ukraine, which is just on our borders, and it's something that this shadow of war we live in with every day. We have Finland, is building military compounds on the borders. It's happening, and I think it's important to remind people how it felt. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to remind people how it felt, not what happened, because we all have history books and we know what happened, but how it felt to lose control over your own destiny,
Tenemos tiempo para una última pregunta.
I would like to hear a few words from you, Kasia, about the what were the visual references to reconstruct the Warsaw in 1981, especially if you use any reference from cinema, Polish cinema or British cinema?
I actually have one of the main references was Nidenthal's pictures. Nidenthal is a photographer that actually took a lot of pictures in 1981 during and before and after martial law was installed. And we used a lot of his iconographic pictures, like, for example, the tank in front of the cinema that plays Apocalypse Now, which is a very famous picture for Poles. But as a cinematic reference, I have two very different ones. One is Odd Man Out. It's a film that is a Carol Reed film with James Mason, Escaping from Belfast. It's a great film noir, which, obviously our movie is not really a film noir. It's more an anti-film noir, if you want. But this kind of, breathlessness of the film, and that the hero is, more and more, feverish or distraught. And so the world starts to distort a little bit more and more around him. And the second one, which is maybe a surprising one, is Brazil, that I rewatched before shooting. And I just love these dream sequences in Brazil when, have these strange buildings growing and Jonathan Pryce, I guess, flying through them as a bird, which is very surreal. And of course, we didn't go that far, but I wanted to. I really was inspired by those two films,
Muy bien, pues tenemos que dar por finalizada esta rueda de prensa. Solo nos queda agradecerles a Kasia y a Lesley y a Stanislaw que nos hayan acompañado hoy y desearles muchísima suerte con la película. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.